Mr. S.N Subrahmanyan, CEO Managing Director of L&T, joins us now to walk us through what transpired for L&T for the quarter gone by. It's been an all-round beat by L&T. Optimism is back, order book is growing, and the international business has really stabilized. Mr. Subrahmanyan, before we start our today's conversation and interview, here's wishing you and your entire team a wonderful year ahead on behalf of everyone from ET Now.
Thank you, Nikunj. Wish everybody at ET Now a great, lovely and fantastic 2021.
Mr. Subrahmanyan, based on what we've got from L&T and the Q3 numbers, there seems to be a complete departure in the trend. Order book is back, margins have improved. How does one understand the future course of business? Is this pent-up demand which is coming back? Is this sugar rush? Or you see evidence of a cyclical and a structural uptick now?
It's a good question to have, but let's first go through the results we had. It's the highest ever order inflow at about 73,000 crores for the quarter. One of the largest EPC orders, the largest EPC order in the country ever at 28,000 crores for the high-speed corridor C4 and C6 packages. One of the longest bridge in the country between Dhubri and Fulbari in Assam, Brahmaputra, nearly 2,800 odd crores. One of the largest rural water supply schemes in Madhya Pradesh at about 3,500 odd crores. The largest hydrocarbon order ever from L&T's point of view for the HRRL refinery in Rajasthan at 8,580 crores. And then another order following it, the feed cracker unit at about 3,753 crores. The largest equipment order ever that we have got from Tata Steel at about 650 crores. We grown our revenue is more or less equal to the Q3 of last year, and our PAT is 5% growth over the last quarter. So in all sense of the term, we have grown beyond what was ever thought about, and I think I should thank my colleagues, all our staff and workmen who have contributed to this. I think there's a pent-up feeling, Nikunj. We were closed out for 5 months. We had put in various measures to galvanize our people to make it L&T One, to make it L&T Unity, or to call it L&T Together. We just wanted to get back to prove that we couldn't be bottled up like this. I think a lot of emotions are at play, a lot of passions are at play. We said to ourselves that whatever time we lost, let's try to gather up and dust it off and see how much we can get back. We did our budget in February, March, and we didn't take it on record in the sense we didn't present it to a board because the pandemic happened, and we said there's no point in having a budget because we didn't know how long this pandemic would last. But internally we said, let's try to go for the budget. That was not possible. It was an impossible stretch target, if one would like to call it, because having lost 5 months on an EPC project space to get that would be difficult. But we kept that as a target. To a large extent, our IT and services could work from home or from anywhere, and they were able to manage a fair part of it. The EPC projects and manufacturing had to go through the issue of non-working for 5 months to catch up. But I think the team displayed extraordinary sense in recovering ourselves to a large extent in Q3. We are going all out to see that Q4 is seen as a growth. And we hope to carry the momentum forward. At the moment, Nikunj, as you know, we have 331,000 crores of backlog, the largest ever in our history. It's one of the highest backlogs of any EPC across the globe. And therefore, there is sufficient work for the next 3 years. And therefore, from a sales and profit point of view, we should keep pushing on it. Order inflow, as I see it, there are reasonable opportunities in front of us. And the trajectory seems to be positive. Long term is a different matter, but at the moment it seems to be positive, and we're pushing ahead on all fronts on that.
Now, Mr. Subrahmanyan, your order book, if I look at what you have reported, the order book is in a sense stabilized. Your order book is down only 3% on a year basis. When the COVID crisis had hit us, it appeared that your order book is going to drop and fresh orders would not kick in. So what has transpired into such strong order booking? Where is this growth coming from?
Yes, I should, as I said, thank my colleagues and all my staff and workmen who stood by us to get it to where we are. We have said we'll not give any predictions this year. You've been tending to ask all your questions towards that. As I said, we hope that we go through the year in the manner that you described. There will be some scars, but let's hope that we are more or less where we want it. And I'm very positive about it. Let's see where it goes.
Okay, I respect that you're not giving any forward-looking guidance because of the environment. So let's take the clock back and talk about what has L&T done in the last couple of years. You've invested in a lot of new age businesses, IT or new businesses, IT and finance. Those businesses have done exceedingly well for you. Mindtree has turned around, and the other infotech businesses also have been incubated very well. Now that the infrastructure cycle is coming back, will L&T go back to going to their basic business, which is infrastructure related activities, or you will continue to invest in your new age businesses?
No. Don't call it new business and subsidiaries. When you look at L&T, we are basically into three broad sectors, right? EPC projects where we started, that's the biggest still. And then there is manufacturing and defense, which is reasonable in size. And these are made to order manufacturing. And then you have the services, which is LTI, LTTS, and Mindtree. Now, LTTS, Mindtree had to be LTI and LTTS. LTI focused on IT and application space, and LTTS is an engineering company. They were naturally kept out because the kind of markets they operated in were different, the kind of salary structure is different, the need to attract talent, etc., resulted in them being kept separate. We acquired Mindtree a year back, and therefore naturally it is a separate company. So services part of us, whether it is L&T Finance, LTI, LTTS, or Mindtree, or looked on as heavily owned subsidiaries of ours, we are super majority there. And we want to continue it like that from a growth point of view, and from a talent point of view, and from a market point of view, from a client-facing point of view. So they will continue to be like that. Now, the rest of the L&T is sort of together. We moved out hydrocarbon for similar reasons, but we would see what to do with that as we go into the future. But it is classified as being 100% owned and being part of the rest of L&T. The rest of L&T, which is EPC and manufacturing defense, will continue to lay emphasis on it to grow that. But these are projects kind of businesses. There is no immediate mindset to do any major capex or such other requirements, or is it called for in these areas. The regular capital expenditure of buying a crane or buying a concrete plant or buying some buying some technology mission would be there, but those are regular capital expenditures. No major such capex is envisaged in these areas.
But do you see the total contribution which was coming, or total loss which was coming because of your loss-making subsidiaries? That proportion could come down significantly, because if your loss-making subsidiaries are kept under check, or if you decide to divest your ownership there or turn them around, the aggregate picture changes. Your return ratios, they become significantly better.
There are three subsidiaries which worries us, and it's on record, therefore I can talk about it. One is L&T IDPL. During the heydays of BOT concession, we were the first organization being in the infrastructure space to get into concession projects. So we set up L&T IDPL as a consequence of that. And at one point of time, it was the largest concession organization in India. It owned nearly 21 roads, and it owned partly an airport, water projects, transmission line projects, so on and so forth. Now, we have already sold out 49% of it to Canadian Pension. Our stated objective was to move down to zero, or if not, at least 11% in L&T IDPL. If the pandemic was not there, we would have done that last year. Negotiations with the Canadian Pension and other interested investors are ongoing, and we hope to move out of L&T IDPL either to 11% or to zero during the course of the year. You'll hear from it as we move forward. The second is Nabha Power in Punjab, where we have a 1400 megawatt coal-fired power plant. It is a profitable power plant. It makes a PAT of about 280 to 300 crores every year. But within the stated of what is L&T today, it is not fitting into what we need to be. We would like to move it out. There are ongoing deep-rooted discussions taking place with interested investors, and as and when these fructify, we'll keep you informed about the details. The third is the heavy investments that we've done in a company called Hyderabad, L&T Hyderabad Metro Limited. It's a metro system of Hyderabad. It's a concession agreement, 35 plus 25 years. The traffic had moved to, we had completed the project last year. The Honorable Chief Minister had inaugurated it. It's one of the best run metros in the country. And traffic had moved up to 400,000. And then due to pandemic, it has now come down to 130,000. It was closed out for nearly 5 months. It's finally come to about 130, 140,000 passengers per day. The financials are therefore not in a very settled state as of the moment. So we are working on it to see how best to rearrange the finance, and also to see what else to do with it from a near term and from a long term point of view. It's a work in progress. It is complicated from the fact that it's a concession agreement. The best of minds are working on it, and the solution will take a couple of years to evolve on it, and therefore we have to bear with the losses for some time, but we will finally evolve a solution on it.
Okay, so would you be keen on participating in BML? We understand that government is looking at selling strategic stake in BML. Will L&T be aggressively bidding for it?
No, Nikunj, as I said, we are right now very clear as to where the organization goes for the next few years. It's primarily EPC construction and projects, the manufacturing and defense space that we are in, and the services. I don't think we would move away from it for the time being. So we are not looking at heavy investments like what you just now mentioned, and we stick to what we right now defined as the core part of the company, and that's what it would be.
Now, along with your numbers, you've given a very strong sense on where L&T's defense business is. Why have you come out with such strong clarification on the nature of your defense business and where exactly you present in the defense chain?
You're right. It's important for us to clarify that, because fundamentally, what are we doing in defense? We are calling it defense. We can also call it very high-end, high-end manufacturing. What we're doing there is very fine parts for rockets, or for the bridging systems, or for certain other salient features of what is required. So these are highly machined parts, high-end tolerances, and very fine machined parts. We also assemble things like submarines or ships or the K9 Vajra. We are not into any ammunition or any activities related to fissile materials or anything else. It's purely assembled or machined parts, and therefore it has to be loud and clear that it's the typical what L&T does in project management space, in system integration place, that is on play there. With the high-end skills that we have in doing highly fine machine parts, and therefore it's an activity which is considered high-end specialized manufacturing, rather than you can call it a pure play defense kind of from an ammunition or such point of view. Therefore, it was important to clarify that, and that's what we have clarified.
Right. Given that right now, government is really coming up with PLI schemes, the dependence on import is getting less. Atmanirbhar Bharat is the new mission statement of the government. When you speak to private companies and private large companies, are you getting a sense that a fresh capex cycle has started? Because if I look at the headlines which are coming, let's say from the Birla Group, Ultratech is looking at expanding. If I look at what the Adanis are doing, the sense which we are also getting, let's say from an Hindalco, companies are committing and are ready to invest in capex. Do you think the private sector capex has turned around, and that in a sense could be the trigger point for L&T now?
No, one is always, let's be very clear, one is always excited about private businesses, because it's across the table negotiations. You tend to get a premium and value for the services that you put in, and L&T is always a much sought after organization from a time and quality and safety point of view of implementation. And therefore, any good private sector investment is always welcome. The fact is, like an organization like us, when we have cut down on capex and R&D and all that, considering the pandemic, and when you tend to become lean, mean, and more efficient from that point of view during this kind of tough economic times, I guess every major private organization is also doing that. Why every private organization is also undergoing the same philosophy of how to run its business. These times are to be careful, and therefore everybody would be. Therefore, I don't see huge major capex investment from private sector. Now, I do feel certain parts of cement, steel, and maybe certain organizations on the electronic side, etc., or on the retail side, etc., would see some investments. And wherever there is an opportunity, L&T would like to play a part or take part in the capex process of these organizations. I wouldn't rule out private sector totally, but if you're going to ask me whether there's going to be huge private sector investment, I would doubt it for another year and a half too. And that's what I've been saying, and that's what I continue to say.
Okay, I'm going to extend the timeline here. I respect that you will not be giving a guidance, and that's largely because of the environment we are in. But you mentioned in one of the answers that you think for next 3 years, business is not a problem because your order book is that large. But when you have to execute that kind of an order book, there are multiple challenges which are there in the environment. Interest rates are changing, commodity prices are changing. Given how steel and cement prices have gone higher, you could actually start feeling the pinch there. What to your mind is the single biggest challenge for you to execute next 3 years? While you already have assured books, but when it comes to execution and implementation, the environment is such that you cannot take things for granted.
Yes, 3 years is a long time, and 3,31,000 crores is a good backlog to have. At the same time, we need to be conscious about how we handle the backlog. As we see the backlog now, it's very profitable. But we need to take it forward with all the uncertainties around us. So what are the things that worry us basically is the following. Number one is labor. Though we are a populous country, to get the right skills, to get the right caliber of people is getting extremely difficult. There are two reasons for it. Number one, people have their own view of what kind of life they want to lead. I think there's a general tendency for people to go towards the softer side of life, like being on the retail side, being on the education side, being on certain marketing side and such. And therefore, to attract labor to the hard work that we do, like reinforcement and concreting and shuttering, etc., is always a difficulty. At the moment, we have about 270 to 80,000 laborers on our rolls, and maybe another 50, 60,000 laborers indirectly. And as we grow and if we require more and more laborers, that is going to be a challenge from my point of view. A whole lot of efforts on training and reskilling, etc., takes place, but it's nevertheless a challenge. The second point is beyond availability of labor is, as I said, the skill sets of labor. Earlier days, a carpenter's son would watch his father being a carpenter and tend to become a carpenter himself. Same way for reinforcement or whatever it is. But today, the skill sets are dramatically and drastically falling down. And therefore, we either have to reskill them. We ourselves have a centralized skill training institute, the National Skill Development Council, where my chairman, Mr. Nayak, also is the chairman and plays a part. All that is important from a skilling point of view. But at the same time, to get so many people with necessary skills is always a challenge. And therefore, the quality and safety at sites becomes a bit of a casualty, and we have to be extremely cautious, careful about how we take this forward. So labor is one of the biggest challenges that we have. The second is, I think, supply chain. We were, as an organization per se, speaking for Larsen and Toubro, were having our own yards and fabrications, an ecosystem of MSMEs, SMEs who do many works for us, doing many things forward. At the same time, we were dependent on China at the early part of the year because of economies, because of better prices, because of certain technology and other things available, because that economy had grown much faster than ours. But when the border incidents took place, as most of us became more conscious about what happened and being nationalistic, we had to shift our supplier base from China to certain other MSMEs and SMEs within India. And we also had to reskill our own yards and factories to see that many of the things that...
Okay, closing comments, sir. While your order book is very impressive and robust. The profile of your order book has changed. I was looking at a Jeffries report which talks about the fact that in the last cycle, building factories and housing was almost 30% of your order book. That has come to single digit now. Also, you mentioned that you are moving up the value chain in terms of implementation projects and the tech role has come up. What does that mean for L&T's margins? Is L&T at the cusp of margins where they would improve, not dramatically, but they would improve incrementally with each quarter? Because the kind of work which you were doing earlier versus what projects you're executing, there's a big difference in A, project execution capabilities, and also the profile of the projects.
I hope so. I wish so. But yeah, buildings was predominantly dependent on private sector, right? 90% of the orders there, 95% of the orders there were purely private sector. Unfortunately, when both real estate as well as commercial spaces declined, IT companies are not recruiting so many people, and maybe their business models change. They depended on lease spaces, etc., instead of building their own captive spaces. Residential went down quite a bit last few years. So buildings struggled from an order inflow point of view, including execution point of view, cash flow point of view, and therefore that business is not that preeminent within the L&T ecosystem now as it was earlier. And I think we are where we need to be. The business that is really growing right now was the heavy civil, the transportation, the hydrocarbon, power transmission, and such spaces, water. We like these spaces. We generally more profitable in these spaces. We tend to do these jobs much better. And yeah, it's good. But if buildings with private sector comes back, it'll also add to the overall profile. But what it is today, it's pretty good, and I don't have any bad feelings about it. I feel I have all the good feelings about it.
All right, sir. Appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us and have a wonderful year ahead.